Welcome back, fellow Nightfarers. Today I want to talk about using the Undertaker as a pure faith caster. Because not only is she a true paladin, also with new stat change relic, she has the potential to be one of the strongest casters in the game. Before I get into it, if you like Souls-like and roguelike content, especially Dark Souls and Elden Ring, and want to support a small growing channel, please consider liking this video and subscribing to get more content in the future. I'd like to start off by talking about the stats of the Undertaker, as well as the Recluse and the Revenant, and how their faith compares to each other. We're going to be using this Reddit thread from FoxB, where they show the level 15 base stats for each Nightfarer, as well as what their stats would be at level 15 when their stat change relics from the Collector's Signboard are equipped. What makes these relics so awesome is they have the extra 3 stat points in their respective stats, on top of not being tied to Deep of Night relics. This means you can have powerful faith casting builds with the Undertaker that you can take into normal game content or Everdark bosses. So the Undertaker's base faith is 41, and when you compare that to the Revenant and Recluse, who both have 51, it's still not bad damage, but you're dealing around 10% less than the other two characters. However, with the stat change relic, the Deep of Night version would have brought you up to 53 faith. This version brings you up to 56 faith, so you're a decent amount above the Recluse now. Though it is worth noting, the Recluse's stat change relic, which only costs a little bit of her unlimited FP, raises her faith and intelligence both up to 66. So she is back up to that 10% stronger threshold. But don't worry, the Undertaker actually has a lot of tricks up her sleeve to catch up, and even go past her with certain schools of incantations. Another awesome thing though is this gives us a whopping 60 FP. That's basically 12 extra mind altogether. You're not getting that much FP from any other relic. So just off of her base damage from the stat change relic, Lightning Spear goes up to 399, which is pretty good damage. Combining this with Undertaker activating Ultimate Art increases attack power, which gives you a 14% buff for 30 seconds, will bring you up to 454, which is still pretty good. Now there's a cool thing we can do with her ability though. Every time we use it, it gives us 10% damage to our attack. And for more or less a 30-year spells, as long as you time it right, they'll get another 10%. When calculating the buff she gets from her ability, I'm going to be viewing it as a 13% buff to all damage for 8 seconds out of 20 seconds. So we're going to do 40% of that, and we get about 5.2. I'm just going to round down and say this is a 5% overall damage buff. Now when we look at Undertaker activating Ultimate Art increases attack power, this is a 14% buff for 30 seconds. But we all know one of the best things about the Undertaker when you're playing with a team is you get a lot of ultimate uses. I don't think it's that outlandish to say that you can have this buff up for about half the time, at least half the time when you're in combat. Meaning the Undertaker gets an overall 12% buff from having the Undertaker activating Ultimate Art increases attack power and utilizing her ability properly. When it comes to utilizing her ability properly, you don't have to put a lot of thought into it when you're using quick cast spells like Bestial Sling. What I prefer to do when I'm using charge spells is activate my skill right before I release the spell. This gives me extra time for my buff. And also then if I just want to throw a quick lightning spear, I can. Or fireball or whatever spell we're using. It is worth noting a lot of people like to do this and go Ultra Instinct, which is completely fine. It will actually give you more hits that get that second 10% buff, but you're not going to be getting the buff from activating your Ultimate Art until one of your teammates activates an Ultimate. So keep that in mind if you like to use the Ultra Instinct. So that's enough to catch us up with the Recluse, get a little bit ahead. But the issue there is the Recluse also has their Ultimate, and they also have the ability to get attack power boost from said Ultimate. Though they can't get this attack power boost as often, this does allow them to get higher burst damage and even hold on tighter during clutch moments, because of the healing that's available from that ultimate as well. Because of the Undertaker's higher health pool, it's actually not a bad idea to have an ability that says taking attacks improves attack power. You're able to survive a lot more hits than the Recluse and the Revenant already, and on top of that, your starting weapon comes with one of the greatest weapon arts in the game. Let's get real. Prayerful Strike has so much poise damage, and it can heal you back pretty easily. A lot of people that play with the Undertaker are rocking this thing, and taking attacks improves attack powers, and you can easily see why. A 15% damage to and amazing weapon art. That's awesome. We also have to remember our incantations have rally potential, so that will help us out there as well. And it's not just her higher health pool that makes this actually viable. It's also the fact that her ability gives her a 35% damage reduction. Meaning when you do take damage, you won't take nearly as much. And since we're always looking for things like damage negation at full HP, or when taking damage, or after successive attacks, it just stacks onto your already existing damage negation. Meaning you can just be that much more of an aggressive caster when you need to. Even when you're a caster, you still have the ability to play the paladin role. That means going in there and dealing some damage with your weapons. The Undertaker's increased attack power after landing the final hit from a chain attack will give you 10% buff for 30 seconds. And it's not that hard to just go in and whack someone a few times and then start casting on them. I do think that's a powerful relic to have on the Undertaker, especially if you're using Dark Knight of the Wise. And that basically is a 10% damage buff you can have up almost indefinitely for the entire game. So now I want to get into rally potential and spells. As far as incantations go, rally potential really isn't that great. An incantation like Bestial Sling can do decently if you're able to throw out a lot of rocks, and Beast Claw, if it hits a lot of people, can actually give you back quite a bit of health. Outside of that, a lot of our most powerful spells, Black Fireball, Lightning Spear, Giant Flame Take Thee, Flame of the Fell God, at least these are some of my favorite spells, though they can get you back good rally potential, they don't have the best time window to do so. And when you're getting back a lot of health from this rally, it's because you traded a hit, which isn't always a bad thing to do. The incantations that give you back the most health from the rally potential, though, usually involve having fire or magma left on the ground, some sort of residual effect. The Flame of Frenzy is very nice. Both of the magma spells, of course, are great. Land 6's Glaive, Fortress 6's Lightning Spear, and Ancient Dragon Lightning Spear seem to be pretty good from my experience. Same thing with Frozen Lightning Spear. Especially if you're able to trade a hit with the enemy and you have increased damage after taking a hit. That's always nice. The Disc and Triple Rings of Light can actually do good if you're able to get them to pause on the enemy, but that's too much depth perception for me. I will say though, two spells that surprised me with how good they were was the first being Black Flame Ritual, and the second being Scouring Black Flame. Both of those especially if you're surrounded by enemies. But yeah, though rallying potential and spells are not that great, it is still nice to get some health back after you get hit. And as you can see, when it's a small amount of damage, quick cast spells work beautifully here. But definitely if you have a spell that has a big AoE effect, it's going to be able to get you a lot of rally potential back when you're fighting against mob enemies. I feel like I've gone over the basics of a lot of using her as a faith caster. Keep in mind that between Undertaker increased attack power after using your ultimate, and her skill, she has about a 12% buff to her overall DPS. And if you work in perks like 10% on chain attack finisher, 15% on taking damage for 10 seconds, depending on your playstyle, you're going to be a really powerful faith caster that can actually deal more damage on average than the Recluse will. But we can go even further than that. If we specialize in physical damage, she just straight out becomes the best caster in the game. No competition. And that's because of the leather monocle case. When you're under the... First of all, it gives us a 5% buff to our physical damage anyways, which is nice. But it also says, physical attack boosted while under the assist effect from an incantation active for self. And this doesn't just have to be a buff for ourself, like Golden Vow or Blessing's Boon. This can also be a buff on your weapon or your shield. So for my testing, I'm using Black Flame Blade, because it doesn't actually do anything to my body at all, and once I put my weapon away, it's null, though we still get to keep the 15% physical attack buff for an entire minute just by having that cast. If we're using the 12% overall DPS buff from earlier, that assumes you have a 50% uptime, and add in the extra 5% from physical attack plus 2, and the 15% from the eye patches ability, we get 35% extra damage. But that 35% is nothing. Because one of the coolest things about the Undertaker's Ghass Necklace relic is that successive hits will trigger off of certain incantations. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about how carrying swords are great for this, and they are. As long as all my testing was correct, there are 6 incantations in total that will trigger successive hits, increase attack power. Some will be better than others. Some require charging, Some, it helps to have increased casting speed, as I'll show you soon. So first things first, I'm just going to start off with the best one. Aspects of the Crucible Tail. This is what I was using in the intro of the video, and this is why. You see our damage numbers keep going up and keep going up. Right now we're at 847. This means this spell, if you charge it and you're able to chain it on an enemy, you can actually cap it out and keep it capped out. Though, as you saw from just there is not a lot of window for forgiveness. Still, that's awesome because you don't need to use the spell to get it ramped up in the first place. We can use the heavy attacks from a fist weapon, or we can use one of the broken weapon skills like Prelate's Charge or Corkscrew Blade. The next one is Aspects of the Crucible Horns. This is a pretty fun attack. You can charge it to increase your range and damage. But if you want to just stack up and get that bonus going, you're going to have to quick cast it. The problem is, without an increase in my dexterity or increase to casting speed, I'm not actually getting that much out of it. You basically have to be right up against them, point blank casting it every time in order to get the buff to go up and stay up. But it is very nice to have the ability to actually sustain the buff. I cannot stress enough, this is the main point we're going over, which actually incantations work with the Ghass Necklace. Because not all of them are going to get it up all the way easily, but every one of them can sustain it. The next one I want to go over is Black Blade. This is an awesome spell that I barely ever see. And because it comes with a 2-hit combo, it is definitely peak for getting this up. And now that we're talking about spells with wider range and attacks, it is worth noting that if we hit multiple enemies with a single attack, each of those will give us a level. Which is also true for the Crucible Tail incantation as well. So next I want to talk about the dragon body part spells. We have Dragon Maw. This by itself is so slow, you're never going to be stacking it up if you start at 0. You need cast speed in order to do so. But once again, it's nice to have something that can just keep that perk going and keep it rolling just by casting an incantation. Dragon Claw is a little different. It has a follow-up attack and an AoE. So it is also a peak spell for getting it ramped up. Though, it doesn't seem like it was as quick as Aspects of the Crucible Tail, it was still pretty nice. Now the next one, which is also great if you have increased casting speed, and perfect for building up when you're fighting mobs of enemies, is Lanziex's Glaive. I'm not quite sure if it's just the sword that triggers this, or if the lightning strikes do as well. I think it's just the sword, but I'll have to do a little more testing, maybe I'm wrong. Still, the sword has an amazingly huge hitbox. So anytime there's a group of enemies in front of you, you know this will be able to get you right up to max stacks right away. Which, based off of the 12% number I'm using earlier for the first ability on her Ghass Necklace relic, and her Loathsome Hex ability, assuming they have a 50% uptime, this puts us at 82% extra physical damage. Even if you're not focusing on physical attack power, there are 2 awesome incantations that do affinity damage that will trigger the successive attack bonus on the Ghass Necklace: Lanziex's Glaive and Black Blade. Outside of that, we have Aspects of the Crucible Tail and Horns, which deal physical, and Dragon Maw and Dragon Claw, which also deal physical. So if you are focusing on physical incantations with the Undertaker, it is definitely worth it to equip the Ghass Necklace, just in case you get one of these powerful spells. And even if you're not, it's still kind of worth it to equip it, because you may be bouncing back and forth between doing a lot of melee damage and then throwing out something like Lightning Spear or Giant Flame Take Thee. And because of our larger health pool and the ability to pull a second stamina bar out of our ass, the Undertaker is very well suited to play both of these roles, even when we have nerfed her strength down to 35. So to finish this up, I am going to talk a little bit about cast speed. Right now I have the Undertaker's Dexterity Increase relic up, which puts her up to 35 Dexterity. The issue with this is that's not nearly enough though, because this only gives us 22 extra dexterity, not the 30 that spellcasting speed plus 1 actually represents. So keep that in mind when we're looking at these numbers. So we're going to be just a tiny little bit slower than some of those. But this is important if you want to use the Ghass Necklace with some of these incantations. Because as we noted earlier, the best way to use Crucible of the Tail is to charge it. But it does seem to have a pretty long wind-up time? I don't know what we're doing when we're having a sigil pop out of our butt. Let's get real. However, aspect of the Crucible Horn really benefits, even though, once again, it's not the charge we're going for here. You just want to press yourself against an enemy's body and keep wrecking it. Cool thing about aspect of the Crucible Horn is once you get it charged up all the way, once you get successive attacks charged up all the way, you can actually start charging this up, and more times than not, you will have the full buff when you hit an enemy. Of course, it's going to help out Black Blade and Lanziex's Glaive a lot. Dragon Maw is one that, even with the casting speed, it's not going to be stacking up the Ghass Necklace unless you're able to hit multiple enemies. Then it will stack it up pretty quick and pretty efficiently. Dragon Claw, on the other hand, should always give you a full level every time its hand hits somebody, so casting speed does nothing but wonders for you. Well, that concludes everything for this video. I hope you learned some useful tips and tricks for using the Undertaker as a faith caster. And remember, if you like content like this and you like Souls-like and roguelike games, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. It would really help the channel out a lot. Thank you.